Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Living on Lemonade podcast with Lauren. Today, I am taking this episode in a direction that I've never taken before, but with the climate and what's going on, I can't see any other priority at this time. There's a few things that I kind of want to address and provide my thoughts and experience and hopefully create a little bit of expansion and opportunity and awareness in how we can move forward. I have some notes here that I'll kind of follow so that I can stay on track, but I'm recording this on Sunday, January 25th. For anyone who's keeping up with stuff going on in America, another man, Alex, I think Preddy, was killed yesterday by ICE agents. And the route that I want to take today is for those of us who might resonate with the term like empath, or if you don't know what that means, empaths are people who feel things very deeply, not only from their own experiences, but through witnessing other people perhaps having difficult experiences, or world news can be very heavy, and just things that are going on, conflict, grief, things like that. So if you find that you really struggle in times like this, we've had wars going on in the world for the last, they're always ongoing, but specifically between Israel and Palestine, and Ukraine and Russia, that it's heavy, right? It can feel very heavy. So this episode is for those of you who resonate with that, and even those who don't, if you still want to listen and just kind of maybe broaden your horizons with something that you may not be aware of, but might be helpful. I know yesterday I was with a friend. We had a lovely day. We were watching some of the Taylor Swift 6-part series. We kind of watched 2 episodes. Mostly we were chatting though, so I think that's what we needed most. But I didn't know anything that was going on until I got home. I will say, like, rewinding back to childhood, I remember being at my grandparents'. I think I'll take you on a little bit of journey, and then we'll come back to what I was just saying. As a child, being at my grandparents', they listened to the news a lot. My other grandma did too. And I even from like being a kid, I had a really hard time listening to the news. It always felt heavy to me. It's very doom and gloom, and I kind of made a conscious decision at that time that as much as possible, I wasn't going to watch the news broadcasts and stuff. And there's other ways to be aware and informed on things. Reading newspapers, reading articles online, like actually going to the newspaper websites and stuff. That was a better way. Or just having conversations with people who are informed and kind of getting the Coles notes, because I really just felt like it's too much almost for my nervous system. And so that's kind of the beginning. And then moving forward into high school and deciding what I want to maybe do for the rest of my life, my post-secondary education is in photojournalism. So lots of classes on like ethics and different styles of photography and journalism and stuff like that. So we did three mediums. We did journalism, written, for the photography part, and then we also did video. Like we called ourselves the triple threat, or that was kind of the, I don't know, term, whatever. And even so, once I graduated, I in order to graduate, we had to do an internship. So I did my internship at my community newspaper, like in my hometown, and fit in really well. I really liked it there. And then I was asked to, I think it was that summer? Yeah, I was asked to stay on as to kind of help with, so that the full timers could take their vacation and they weren't short staffed and stuff. So a 2-month kind of full time stint, and then continued after that as a freelance journalist, a photojournalist. I covered a lot of weekends. I did pretty much every weekend unless there wasn't a lot going on. But I was their weekend gal and kind of stuff in between. And then eventually the sports photographer would send me to do sports events and cover that with photographs. So sometimes during the week, but mostly weekend stuff. And I loved being out in the community. And I'll tell you that the stories, just to give you an idea if you don't know me well, the stories that I sought out and pitched to my editor were pretty much always human interest. They were those, what's the right term I want to use? Like, they were like the glimmer of hope, the inspirational pieces of people doing kind things in the community for each other, for a great cause. Like a middle school aged girl collecting pop tabs to raise funds for like a wheelchair. Friend from high school was collecting beer cans and such, and then donating the money to the local humane society. So those types of stories, because as I've said, from an early age, I could see just how slanted the news was and how fear-based it is. It is wildly fear-based. It is meant to interact with that fear center of your brain, the amygdala. Man, so much like oppression and stuff. It's just wild. So that's why I decided to use other sources of media to get the stories without having these headlines flashing in my face and these people talking in their tones. And I just find I have a more visceral reaction watching it on the news than I do from reading articles. So I've always had a love-hate for the media, one thing, because of how slanted it is, how fear-based it is. There's not enough good news. I know that it really does like pander to the almost to our, like, from a evolutionary perspective, our pessimistic, like we do have kind of, as a human species, we do tend to lean towards the pessimistic side, the negative bias side of our brain, and news really plays into that. And then you bring it forward even more when we introduce social media and algorithms, and once we start following stories and such. It's different here in Canada. If you're listening elsewhere, we're not able to access and share news stories on Facebook, which I agree and disagree with. It's kind of, it's a whole weird thing, but you still see the story shared on things and people giving their opinions and whatnot. If you go on Instagram, you're seeing more of that, especially, and lots on TikTok and elsewhere. I'm sure on X. I haven't been on Twitter in years, but those social media platforms are designed to collect information on what you're spending time watching and feed you more of that. And I truly believe that social media has been widely one of the main, if not the biggest reason why we are so divided. Not only in the States, it's in Canada too. You see all kinds of posts supporting their own bias and slashing the other side as if they're the enemy, the rights, the lefts, the Democrats, the Republicans, the liberals, the conservatives, right? And they're used as like insults, and it I see that stuff and I'm just like, it's so petty. Like, it's so fucking wild. I might swear in this episode, and I might get a little bit I might have to actually take a second and just put my hand over my heart and take a breath, because some of these, especially when it comes to like human rights, civil rights, I get really dysregulated, and I have a hard time not crying. Sometimes I just do cry because it hits my heart. And that's that empath part. But like I was saying with social media and stuff, it has created such a division. I don't even know how to put words to it. We've lost our ability to have intelligent conversations and have civil conversations and agree to disagree. There's some wild things that are said by people who lean further on a different side of the spectrum than I do, that I go like, holy fuck. Like, what? But I'm not going on Facebook and bashing them and whatever else. I when I do post, and I try not to, like, I don't want to be one of those ones that I have my opinions and stuff, but I also try to like step back and see the bigger picture and just kind of like observe without always being in it, because it's exhausting. And when I do post about something, I try to still be kind and give my opinion on something, but with kindness and a message of, if it's possible, hope, a message of love, that things can be better. And for those that are struggling, like, I still try to bring some of that to the table, so it's not all doom and gloom. But I do think that when I think about like my legacy, who I want to show up not only now, but who I want to be remembered as by the people that know me and continue, like, outlive me, I want to be remembered as someone who did speak up for what they believed was right and in the interest of all humanity and the greater good. I think being a spiritual person and studying this work and having my own spiritual practice and stuff like that, there's it could be a whole other episode, but there's an ick to the whole love and light stuff, and that is spiritually bypassing what's actually going on, and I'm not here for that. So there's a line and a really conscious practice that goes into like serving our humanity and being informed and speaking up about these things, while also like kind of protecting our peace, right? There's actually, I'll keep talking, but there's something, I put it in my stories and I thought it was really, I really liked it. Let me see it here. Okay, it's a picture. If you're watching the YouTube, you can see it. If not, it's like a bunny holding these two things. One is a sunflower that says magic and whimsy, and one is essentially like a flame that says political outrage, and it says we navigate these times by keeping hold of both. We hold the magic and the whimsy, we hold the political outrage, and it's not to bypass what's going on, but I think it helps us to stay grounded in our own spirituality, our own whatever keeps us like on earth, and gives us the capacity to hold the feelings of the political outrage in order to take the actions that are required to create change. And I think where I want to go with this next is, let I'm just going to bring up my notes again, make sure I'm staying on track so I don't blab too long. It allows us, from a biological perspective, when we're super like heightened and dysregulated, we're in that like fear response and stuff, and we feel all kinds of feels. We can feel the anger outside of being an emotion that comes up when, we have a boundary crossed, or someone is acting out of alignment of our own belief system and things like that. Anger is a catalyst for change. And we can see this happening with the protests, not only in Minnesota, but anywhere else on the planet that is protesting, whether it be what's going on in Minnesota or other world events. I really admire the work of Martin Luther King Jr., who took some plays from the playbook of Mahatma Gandhi when it comes to like peaceful protest, but just there's another word. I've got a little bit of brain fog going on lately, so words are kind of escaping me, but just the philosophy of how to approach political unrest, civil unrest, and to actually like work to a positive conclusion, and without non-violent approach, no violence. And I appreciate that the leadership in Minnesota is encouraging the citizens to peacefully protest, to use their voices, but don't stoke the fire. It gets us nowhere. And it only fuels the agenda of those who thrive in the chaos and the negativity. So it's really important to have that balance of the magic and the whimsy to keep us grounded, so we can still operate from our prefrontal cortex, which is our problem solving. It's our rational brain. So we can show up and we can have the capacity to show up peacefully, because we have that little bit of space. We can create a little bit of that space. Be angry about it. Like I said, it's a catalyst for change, but don't let it drive you to act from solely emotion. Allow it to create that spark that gets you moving, but still keep the vision, keep the intention. Like what are you, keep connected with your morals, with your values, and don't let the chaos and the negativity and the lies and whatever's going on draw you away from those morals and how you want to show up in the world to create change. And for me, that's a bigger vision on what is best for the most people, the highest good, greatest intention. And that's not putting down and being a keyboard warrior. It's staying informed. It's speaking my truth from my experiences. I think it's my writing background. I've always kind of been a writer and been able to express myself eloquently, and I think it's easiest for me to express myself through writing. It flows through me better, and I've always worked to remain as diplomatic as I can, but still getting my message across, but in a way that's loving. And because the thing is, we have lost the ability to seek and listen to understand, right? We have these ideas and these beliefs, and we get into arguments, or if we do actually converse with someone, we oftentimes stop really listening to understand their side of things. And there's power in that, because it actually brings us closer together. When we don't listen to understand, this can be in any argument, an everyday argument, or something bigger with this political climate, any bigger topics. It's like we disconnect from our own humanity in the context of conversing with each other. And I think that's really sad. And that's why I have such a beef. I'm still on social media, but I got a fucking beef with it when it comes to that stuff. I got a beef with the media and how there is almost zero responsible journalism anymore, ethical journalism. The program that I took is a 2-year college course. It was the best in the country. They just graduated their last class in 2025. It's really sad that course doesn't exist anymore. They're not training photojournalists anymore. And I know like a lot of newspapers have closed or amalgamated and stuff like that. So I understand the climate for that, but at the same time, it just like you just have all these yahoos, in my opinion, as these journalists reporting these stories, and half the time I think on both sides just talking gibberish. Do your research. Look at like what are the news outlets that actually are more in the center, and they're actually just really more focused on fact. There's not many left. I believe PBS in the States, I think, is one of the more neutral ones. The BBC, Associated Press, there might be a couple more that are kind of slipping my mind, but like Google it, do a little bit of research. What are the less right and left leaning outlets that you can seek to get your news from? Read them from their website if you need to. New York Times comes to mind, but I'm not actually sure. I feel like they probably lean one way or the other. But then you've got your like way left and right. You've got your Fox News, your CNN, your MSNBC. Careful with those. Careful with those. You have to take both sides from it with a huge grain of salt. And one thing that I found myself doing yesterday, because it might be part of my nature, maybe why I was magnetized to journalism, but also as a result of my journalism and how I was trained, it was always to seek multiple angles. You don't write a news story with only one source. It's not responsible or ethical journalism. You have to get multiple sides to a story, and then you write your story based on those multiple angles. So what I found myself doing yesterday, you see all these headlines, right? And like the White House, or gosh, I'm sorry, my mind just goes blank. The like federal agency is putting out this statement very early on. They're creating a narrative. That's their job. They want to get ahead of it, whether it's truthful or not. In my opinion, once I saw the footage, I was like, that contradicts. However, I hadn't actually heard what they said. I just seen these headlines. And I also know I can't believe everything that I see in terms of people put words in other people's mouths. So I asked my husband, like, can you actually find that speech, that address, that public address? I would like to watch it, because I would like to actually see the person saying these things. With the introduction of AI, it's even muddling things more, right? I'm just thinking of like little cute memes, but right now I can tell for the most part the difference, but not always. And I can see this flooding into more mainstream stuff. Like, it's scary because we've come into this world, this reality that it's hard to know what's real and what's not. So I'm more left leaning with things, Not always, though. It kind of depends on the policy. But like in general, more left. However, I like to see the right. I like to see what they're saying, um, how they're spinning the story, because I've seen how the left is spinning the story. Try to find somewhere in between or make my own judgments of like what might be actually more of the center. And the other thing is, when we actually make the time to do those things and actually like challenge ourselves to break our own confirmation bias, because it's pretty fucking comfortable to just keep feeding ourselves and allow the algorithms on social media to feed us the same shit that we're seeing every day and believing, so that we can say yeah, like it just, doing that just moves us more and more and more and more to the side that we were already leaning, right? It's like it takes over control of our own friggin' brain. So we have to break that, like, consciously. I talk about mindfulness practices and stuff for everyday life. This is like a mindfulness practice of being informed and taking control of what we ingest with social media, in the news, and being critical of it, getting curious. I talk about curiosity too, like getting curious of like, especially if you're kind of, if you have a relationship and connection with your intuition, something just doesn't feel right and you're like, I don't know, something feels ick about that. Like, get curious about it, dig a little deeper, look at the other side, find somewhere in the middle. This is how we stop being just a cog on the wheel of this weird, almost dystopian reality. Like, the further on this path we go, the more that I'm like, oh my God. I started reading 1984. I'm not super far in, but I've been told to read it, and I've seen some quotes. I saw a quote yesterday that I was just like, whoa. It stopped me in my tracks, and I was like, it said, it quoted George Orwell, and I was like, that must be from 1984, because I know like the theme of the book, but it just hit too close to home, and I was like, we're going down that path, like we're on that path, and it's scary, and we have to wake up to our lives, because otherwise we're just like on autopilot, and I don't know. I'm just pulling up my notes again so I can wind this down. Seeking and listening to understand. Please challenge yourself. This is how we keep the humanity in our everyday. This is how we understand each other better. We don't have to agree with each other, but in my opinion, we're far more intelligent and informed when we look at both sides, and when we actually have conversations with people who don't believe the same things that we do, and we actually listen to understand, because it'll open our eyes in ways sometimes good, maybe not so always, but it's important too. I truly believe it's important too. So I invite you, have a conversation with someone who leans a different way politically than you, some of their beliefs, and welcome with love their side of things. And you don't have to be right. Just listen. What can you learn from them? Maybe it's something that you want to do more research on, right? Because what you've been fed from whatever side you're leaning isn't giving you that. So maybe it'll help you to be more critical and informed. There's another word I want to use, but it's not coming to me. It helps us be more well-rounded and, in my opinion, better humans when we can welcome different points of view and truly understand, or at least try to understand, each other. It creates empathy, compassion, and growth. And the last point I have here, along the topic of anger being a catalyst for change, I see anger in that context as like, it it not only sparks the movement, the start of something, but it can be a drive. It's like momentum. It creates momentum and it takes us down a path. And as long as we know our vision and our values so that we can stay connected with them, so we don't lose sight of that and like help people burn down buildings and shit like that, like just stay grounded in what you believe in, stay focused on where you want to go, and let the anger, let the injustice be the fuel to that. The last point I have here is justice through legislation. Who can you call? Who are your representatives, and who can you call to like put pressure, and change happens in numbers, right? Be one of the voices to speak up, leave messages, call your local political representative, call your state or provincial one, like be loud, because when many voices are loud, it puts pressure, and that's how you create change. I immediately think of like the civil rights movement, right, which always gets me choked up, but they're silent, they're peaceful protests, marching across the oh my gosh, I just had the word in my brain. Pettis, is it the, I'm so sorry, I know this. I want to say Edmund Pettus Bridge, that's the one. I was like, I know it, and I'm so sorry I blanked. Marching across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and Martin Luther King's address at the Washington Monument, those historical moments, and just the amount of people that gathered, right? Like just a flood of people, all different shades of color, skin pigmentation, all there for the same cause. These are times when we need to come together for what we believe in. Be one of the many voices, and don't think that your voice doesn't matter, because it does. So with that, I'm going to leave you. I know this is a different vibe than other podcast episodes, but I can't imagine talking about anything else today, and I hope that there's support for you, that you have like-minded people that you can stay grounded and be able to talk to about things. And when you have the capacity, when you're grounded, you have the capacity to reach outward and seek to understand from others who may not have the same beliefs, and still find a connection, a human connection with them. It's so important, because we've lost that, and I see that in the media. I see that in like the media outlets and how they deliver information. I see that on social media, and it is like our humanity is being stripped away, and we're allowing it. So I encourage, I challenge you to bring more humanity into your daily life, and make sure that you're well resourced too. Make sure that you're feeding your own soul, you're getting enough sleep, you're eating well, you're moving, those things, so that you can build that resilience in order to fight the good fight, whether it's for a cause or just simply in connection with humanity. So I am sending everyone a big squishy hug. Hang in there. Bye everyone.